Every year after the Super Bowl draws to a close and the Lombardi Trophy is hoisted, football fans are met with a dark realization. They now will have to wait for months on end to get a brand new Super Bowl halftime show. It's clearly what the people want most. 10 of the top 11 most viewed videos on the NFL's channel are just from halftime shows. But if you only pay attention to the most viewed anything, then you're bound to miss some underrated gems. So today, I'd like to begin a deep dive of every halftime show in the modern era. That way you know which ones are actually worth your 12 minutes. Before we can do that though, in the spirit of the Super Bowl, ad break. Taking care of your nutrition can be an intensive task, and a lot of us at some point have wished we could all just have an endless supply of healthy meals in our fridge instead. If that sounds like you, then I've got some good news. Factor is a meal delivery service that provides fresh, dietitian-approved meals directly to your doorstep. All you've got to do is select which focus you want your meals to have: keto, calorie smart, chef's choice, vegan, vegetarian, or a mix of them, and then you get sent a wide variety of delicious and satisfying meals. Just pop them in the oven or microwave, and you're ready to eat. These meals I have here are from the keto plan that I tried out with some of my family, and they managed to exceed my expectations in every single way, especially this pesto salmon, which was legitimately better than I've had at restaurants. No matter what your schedule or dietary needs, Factor is flexible to make sure you meet your nutritional goals, and their rotating weekly menu of 25 plus options ensures that you never have to be bored of eating healthy again. So if you're interested in checking out what Factor offers, head to go.factor75.com/STE120 and use code STE120 to get a whopping $120 off your order. That's code STE120 at the link down below to get $120 off and make healthy eating at home even more convenient than takeout, and better tasting too. So a huge thank you to Factor, and now let's get back to the video. So the Super Bowl itself has been going on since 1967, but before the mid-1990s, things were a lot less star-studded and a lot more marching bands. We don't even have decent footage of a lot of these early performances, but by the time decent video quality rolled around, things were getting borderline cultish in the halftime scene. But hey, I don't think it'd be fair to just leapfrog the evolution of halftime shows in entirety, so let's kick off our journey in the year 1989, just to see what halftime looked like before we were spoiled by big names.
Elvis Presto!
Say hello to Elvis Presto. That's right, there's an Elvis impersonator performing at the Super Bowl. Keep in mind, Elvis had been dead for just over a decade at this point. Presto does some sick birthday party magic tricks, which, as you know, always play super well in a stadium setting, but his best trick by far is that he's able to sing without having his mouth match the words. F tier for Elvis Presto. Moving into the 1990s, we've got our first colossal name in entertainment with Snoopy the Dog.
Wow! What a great birthday party!
Okay, this one caught me off guard considering the Peanuts are probably at the bottom of the barrel for who I'd ever want to select as a halftime performer, let alone for a New Orleans-themed halftime show. Credit where credit is due, though, because I kind of just watched this one with my mouth half open and wondering if I was hallucinating the entire time. D tier, solely for not being Elvis Presto. 1991 brings us to our first Disney tie-in of the list. This wasn't their first foray into halftime shows, but it was definitely one of them.
Can't touch them!
The New Kids on the Block are supposed to be the star headliner here, but they happen to get upstaged by surprise guest President George H.W. Bush because America is in the middle of the Gulf War.
Tonight, the real heroes are in the Middle East protecting peace for all of us kids.
Hands down, the greatest embodiment of 1991 American culture. You just don't get Roger Rabbit shenanigans followed by U.S. military montages anywhere else.
And thanks to our armed
D tier for Disney. And Desert Storm. 1992's spectacle in the Minnesota Metrodome would kill the halftime show format as it had been previously known by showcasing a 13-minute mess with the title to summarize, it looks like Jack Frost projectile vomited on a local parade. You've got Olympic figure skaters trying to perform on a stage that's the size of a parking space, and then since it is the early 90s, there's some kind of horrible hip-hop thing about Frosty the Snowman.
Say, yo, you know I'm Frosty and I'm talking to you all. I'm your Fresh Prince for the winter, chilling out, standing tall.
Gloria Estefan shows up at the end, but no one is left to care. In fact, the broadcast bled out viewership to an episode of In Living Color by 22% during halftime, and people just didn't bother to come back. F tier. I would rather have watched the Metrodome collapse. So after the ratings embarrassment that was Winter Magic, the NFL decided they would finally pay up a little so that would never have to happen again. The first 90 seconds of this performance consist of Michael Jackson literally just standing there doing nothing, and the crowd still has more energy than every previous show combined. Instead of the TV ratings taking a nosedive, this marked the first time that ratings actually increased during a halftime show in Super Bowl history. There's a lot of MJ's biggest hits that are missing from this set list, but given that it was performed in California following the '92 LA riots, children singing We Are the World kinda understandably gets priority. So, as the first ever performance big enough to feel like an event independent of the Super Bowl, we've got ourselves our first entry in the A tier. 1994 brings us a country medley of Clint Black, Winona Judd, Tanya Tucker, and Travis Tritt. Now, I know that sounds like I found a country artist name generator and refreshed it 4 times, but I promise you, these are real people. If you're a mid-90s country fan, then maybe this is your thing. But we are still talking about the Super Bowl here, so following Michael Jackson with a set list that's straight out of the speakers at Cracker Barrel is just a little underwhelming.
Turn the jukebox up, throw some sawdust down.
We'll place them comfortably in the D tier. On the other hand, 1995's halftime show is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. So the background for this show is that the Indiana Jones ride was opening at Disneyland in a few months, so Disney decided to make that the entire theme of the Super Bowl halftime show. You've got Patti LaBelle and Tony Bennett just kind of awkwardly stuffed between Indiana Jones fight scenes where he steals the Lombardi trophy, which is made out to be like some kind of indigenous artifact.
Bring to me the trophy!
This guy's face summarizes how much everyone here wants to be involved in this ad, but it is hilarious that Disney thought that they could just pull this off.
Well, Indiana Jones, you got your trophy back. So now tell me, sugar, what's next?
I'm giving it to the winner of Super Bowl 29.
F tier for, we'll say, face melting. 1996 brings us to Diana Ross's performance, and in contrast, I think this show is a great standard for what a high-quality halftime show should try to bring to the table.
Ain't no mountain high enough,
You have a great medley of her hits and some popular covers mixed in. There's an ungodly amount of dancers, including this guy, to remind you it's definitely still the 90s, and just enough oomph to make it memorable for years to come, like a helicopter lifting your headliner off into the sky. Let's go with B tier for Diana Ross. That brings us to 1997, and as we've seen throughout the 90s, the halftime show could not stop themselves from taking 1 step forward and then 2 steps back.
Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs somebody.
Alright, I've got to level with you here. I was really confused when I saw this name, because growing up, I always thought the Blues Brothers were a legitimate old-school musical act, and nothing more than that. I saw these statues in a house of blues somewhere, and I just never questioned it. So you can probably imagine my surprise to discover they originated from an SNL skit back in the 70s. By 1997, over 2 decades later, the act's cultural relevance was gone, and not to mention one of the original members, John Belushi, had passed away, now replaced by his younger brother and John Goodman for some reason. So you, as a rational person, might be wondering, why in the hell are they performing at the Super Bowl? Well, they had a movie they wanted to promote, and obviously, some pretty good connections. Let's just say they do fine for performers that can't sing or dance. James Brown and ZZ Top show up and are instantly the best part of the performance, but then the Blues Brothers return for the finale and everything sucks again. Oh, and if anyone's wondering, the movie also bombed. D tier, above the Peanuts, I guess. 1998 brings us a salute to Motown, which featured classic artists like Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, Queen Latifah, and was headlined by Boyz II Men. Now, there are parts of this performance that I really enjoyed, and it is a good change of pace from what we've been dealing with, but it lacks basically any energy at all due to the song list chosen. It's pleasant, but it's just not really halftime show material. Oh, and there are also parts that I really did not enjoy. We'll go with D tier, still above the Blues Brothers. The year 1999 marked a time to reflect and right past wrongs before the inevitable societal collapse that would occur once Y2K happened. So it felt right to bring Gloria Estefan back for another shot after, you know. Now in Miami this time, she teamed up with Stevie Wonder to deliver a medley of their biggest respective hits. It's nothing too wild, but it lives up to exactly what you were probably expecting. I didn't find myself cringing at it as we do with many of these, so I'd say this clears the mark for pre-apocalypse redemption. Gloria and Stevie land in the C tier. Now, if you're impatient, you might have spoiled that the world didn't end in 2000 if you check the publishing date on the video, but rest assured, something far worse did occur.
Endless possibilities await. Behold, the great Millennium Walk.
There's actually a really solid cast of singers involved here. However, there's also a familiar presence lurking over the entire thing to once again make things weird. Again, we are promoting a theme park. This time, it's an Epcot parade, I think. At any rate, it amounts to another well-produced but really corny Disney slogfest, and it makes for a truly uncomfortable viewing experience watching Christina Aguilera and Enrique Iglesias duet on original songs, even though Disney has the biggest back catalog of recognizable songs possible. There is one redeeming factor in that Phil Collins comes in to do a song from the heater that is the Tarzan soundtrack, but it can't change the fact that this is already an alien mess. It is a fleeting moment of happiness, though. You know what? At this point, we're going to create a new tier for all of the mouse-affiliated performances, because I feel like they need to be separated from the rest of the pack before this starts spreading any further. We'll just put this here for any future instances. Alright, that looks good. 2001 brings us to Aerosmith and NSYNC, which is as insane a combo as it sounds. Alright, bear with me, but there's an unexplainable quality about this show that just puts the biggest smile on my face. From everybody sprinting to the stage at the start, to Justin Timberlake and Steven Tyler doing this goofy back and forth thing at the start of Walk This Way. Not to mention, this song includes one of the most chaotic sequences in any halftime show, with Mary J. Blige and Britney Spears showing up to sing in the finale, and then out of nowhere, Nelly appears too for some reason. It doesn't make any sense today, but this is easily one of the best fragments of the early 2000s, and I will take the necessary smoke to stand by that. For that reason, I'm going to place this performance in the full denim outfit tier, where it truly and rightfully belongs right between A and B. Alright, but pause the fun for now, because before the 2002 halftime show, an event happened that forever altered the US and world. So there was no chance that the performance could avoid the moment in that respect.
So beautiful, the sky below you feel like it's a beautiful day.
Despite being an Irish band, U2's tribute to 9/11 victims definitely rises to the occasion, with an uplifting setlist and a scroll of the names that were involved in the tragedy. Even as somebody who was too young to experience this live, the emotion is still palpable watching on video, and Bono revealing the American flag under his jacket at the close is really an all-time moment. Simple, but very effective. So B tier for Bono and the boys. Today, you are honorary Americans. Moving on to 2003, Shania Twain. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. Shania is one of the lowest energy performers in halftime history. Stevie Wonder is literally blind and moved around 20 times more during his set. Fortunately for those that remained awake, Gwen Stefani and No Doubt show up and actually put some effort in, and then Sting appears to duet Message in a Bottle to close things out. Here. This will probably make someone mad, but it's necessary. If 2003's show can be criticized for being forgettable, though, you certainly cannot say the same for 2004. Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction is all this halftime show is remembered for, which is ultimately a shame because it was a bizarre and interesting spectacle even before Nipplegate occurred. Jackson provides a solid opener with All For You, and then you've got Nelly back again. This time he's on some type of Mario Kart vehicle. Diddy's on stage already. Kid Rock has got an entire American flag on. By this point, it's completely off the rails. You figure it's probably almost over, but then Janet Jackson performs Rhythm Nation, and from the center of the stage, Justin Timberlake emerges, dressed like he's ready to do a mock job interview in his 5th grade class. Of course, that is not what he is here to do, and the ensuing controversy from his mistake would completely tank Janet Jackson's career, while basically doing nothing to Timberlake's own reputation. If you want to take a silver lining from a shitty situation, though, it's credited by one of the founders of YouTube as the incident that spurred the creation of the website we find ourselves on today. So maybe in a backwards way, the most divisive halftime show in history brought us all together after all. We'll go with the B tier, for Broadcast Yourself. The fallout of 2004's show prompted the Super Bowl to go in a very different and safer direction moving forward. And what's safer than an old white guy? Don't actually answer that.
Live and let die.
Paul McCartney provided the halftime show with the insurance from controversy it desperately wanted. And while it's very different, it's not like the performance is necessarily bad. There's no special guests or theatrics here, just a handful of Paul McCartney and Beatles familiars.
Hey Jude
is the highlight of the set with the whole stadium singing along, but overall it doesn't really try to reach any higher than what the event organizers were aiming for. Clean. So, top of C tier for Sir Paul. 2006 stayed the course for safer acts, with the Rolling Stones being chosen even though locals in Detroit were hoping to see any shred of influence from that area.
Here's one we could have done at Super Bowl I, but Everything comes to him who waits.
In a similar vein to Paul McCartney's performance a year earlier, any and all glitz is stripped back and the show is far more a standard concert than spectacle. And that would be fine, but the Stones only rolled out 3 songs total, one of them being a new release that fans neither then nor now are familiar with.
This one's called Rough Justice, alright.
The set being the shape of their iconic Lips logo is definitely a nice touch, but for the massive stage that is Super Bowl, this one doesn't really resonate for me, sorry. Middle C tier. To this point, we've seen the halftime show come a long way, from campy to classic and everything in between. But in 2007, the tradition hit a high that very well may never be topped.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Oh no, let's go!
If there's one performance I recommend watching in its full, it's definitely this one. Everything about this is the peak of what you can fit into the show's restrictive format, from kicking off with We Will Rock You to flowing between classics from both Prince and other legends like Bob Dylan and the Foo Fighters.
All along the watchtower, Prince has kept a view.
Everything connects so cleanly without losing the audience for a single second. Famously, it's also the only Super Bowl halftime show to date that took place in a downpour, which couldn't have made Purple Rain a more perfect finale. You know, watching all these shows, there's always one comment that's exactly the same on every halftime video. It's nice that artists allowed a football game to be played at their concert, but Prince is the exception that it's actually true for. Very easily S tier. It seems like the suits in charge essentially agreed that this was a total anomaly, because instead of chasing the dragon, it was decided they'd go with another classic rock act the next year with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So we're right back to the straightforward concert shows, and the thing about any given one of them is that it's really just a matter of preference. If you're not already a fan of Tom Petty, there's nothing here to blow you away. But if you love him, maybe this is your favorite of all time. Ultimately, I think it's only fair to group McCartney, the Stones, and Tom Petty all together, given they were all invited for the exact same reason and delivered exactly what was expected. But as executive curator here, Tom Petty has the best show of the 3. It is close, though. Next up in 2009 is Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Well, Steve, what time is it? It's boss time!
As someone who didn't at all grow up on Springsteen's music, I fully expected this performance to fall in the same vein as that previous grouping of 3. But right from the jump, I realized that is not what's happening here.
I want you to step back from the guacamole dip. I want you to put the chicken fingers down and turn your television all the way up.
The way he delivers that is so perfect, and I've watched it like 20 times. But that's what sets this show apart from the other acts in the 60 Years and Up Club. It's the insane level of energy. Sure, the songs are recognizable, but you've got a knee drop, you've got a stage slide, and you can see that everyone performing alongside Springsteen is just having a blast, and that always carries over to the audience.
I'm going to Disneyland!
Yeah, this guy is the boss. It makes sense now. Sorry for doubting. A tier. So far in our journey through halftime history, we've definitely seen a lot. But we've also learned that the acts chosen to perform are usually cut from a similar cloth right until there's a show so poorly received that the organizers have no choice but to go in a different direction.
Ever since I was a young boy, I played the silver ball. From Soho down to Brighton, I must have played them all.
The Who are undeniably rock legends, but by 2010, they were very clearly too tired to put on an electric Super Bowl halftime show. Every time Roger Daltrey sings, it sounds like he's doing irreversible damage.
I get my back into my living.
But the worst part has got to be how painfully fake the sections where the crowd is supposed to be singing are. So it was a good run for aging rockers, but considering this was the show that would kill off the trend, I think we need to place The Who's performance in the retirement home tier. I'm sorry, I'll visit as often as I can, I promise. So now with The Who placed in the trusted hands of assisted living care, we've seen multiple eras within halftime history rise and then fall. But we're not done just yet. Part 2 of this series is going to pick up right where we're leaving off, and it carries us through to the present day, with plenty of highs and a handful of very low lows that are still to come. If you happen to be watching this when part 2 is out, there is a link to continue forward on the screen now or down in the description. If not, well, then at least I can recommend some supplementary entertainment of any quality you want to keep you busy in the meantime. For now, you can think of those in the same way you would like a halftime show.